What is the fourth dimension? William? Did you speak, lad? I thought I heard your voice. No, I just made a little sound. I was listening to the echoes in the... Has this happened before, Father? Father, where am I? Father? Father, are you there? I dreamed I was a grown-up man. I dreamed that I was famous for my use of knives. I dreamed that I was dying in a madhouse. That was true, wasn't it? I was dying in a madhouse. I remember. Mason Thomas 124. Here, sir. Yes, I remember now. My name is William Whitby Gull, and I am dying. I am Catch Me If You Can. I am Leather Apron. I am Jack the Ripper on my way to heaven. There's a tunnel. There's a movement out of dark and into brilliance. Father? Light, ecstasy, the sun, where am I now? A knowledge comes to me that I am high above the glittery Aegon. And it is no longer 1896, it is instead the year of my achievement. It is 1888. I hover on the brink of form, inchoate and ethereal, filled with a fierce, exultant joy I must make manifest. I concentrate my being to a single bloody point. In rapture I explode a scarlet cloudburst, fluids from Bucks Row and Mitre Square and Miller's Court. Rich and sublime they flower against the blue Aegon sky. A pelting thunderhead of murder, here I sign my year of panics with appalling miracle. While I was yet in life, there was a verse I came to love about an aged scientist stood at the precipice of this, his mortality. Long had he labored in obscurity, and only God had known his secret works. Therefore upon his death he made receipt of God's reward. The universe and all of space and time as his laboratory, wherein to be about his work, his measurements and tests, his autopsies. Now I am somewhere else. Moon upon water in a London blackness, as to year or date I am uncertain. Once again I hang suspended at the rim of substance. I can see my hands, the stinking water of the Thames beyond. A presence heavy at my back, I turn. Ah yes, I understand. The obelisk itself is solid, fixed and permanent in time. About the stone pudenda of its base parade, oblivious phantom that I know to be the living, although not of any single night or century. Come from the Dionysic heavens over Crete to these Egyptian shadows, I am following a current of transmission in Masonic mysteries. I laugh amongst the apparitions for delight. Naked, triumphant, I run laughing for the edge of the embankment and the ancient tide it binds. Some of the idling spectres start and seem almost to see me. It is a haunt for suicide and ghosts. A naked man is seen who leaps into the Thames. No splash is ever heard. The filthy river falls away beneath me. I begin to rise. Something is pulling me. Below the needles, black stone glows unearthly white. About its ageless beacon is the vapor's swirl of human life and time continued. High into the night and higher still, Viewed from the elevated station, lines and traceries are visible. Luminous filaments connect the city's stone into a circuit, into a profound and radiant design. Now I am being drawn back down into the pattern of the world once more, and into time. These are the last years of the 18th century. How are these informations come to me, of place and date? Am I without a body, not myself, but information, and so privy unto everything within that sphere? Is death a door from time into a new lucidity? The doctor in me weighs the facts of my new circumstance as I descend. Through tile, through rafters, into rooms and landings. There beneath, down, down. I stand atop a flight of stairs. The gloomy house is warm and filled with vivid bright emotions. Down below a wooden doorknob turns. My word, how extraordinary. He can see me. I move closer to him, but he runs away. Something about his face that is familiar. What's the matter with my hands? They are grown scaly, monstrous. Am I now but a thing of mind and colored by the minds that view me? Once more I am lifted up through the ceiling into that great night outside of time. What is the purpose of these visitations? Gradually the scales fall from my wrists and knuckles. I am wholly concept now, without the flesh to contradict. I truly am, as I am perceived, in all the myriad ways. All things to all men I ascend. Below the skin of history are London's veins that pulse and glisten with significance, that course with energy and meaning. And I am that meaning, and I am that energy. I move about the pentacle. The stones that marks its points become electrical, recitors that increase my strength and surge. Hoarsely down the Tower of London, faster and brighter, round and round. In 1954 I tried to coalesce while moving through the tower courtyard, but could only manage a vague fog. In 1817, with more success, I am cylinder of pale blue light appeared before the tower's keeper and his wife. Now human in my shape and yet without a third dimension, I slide underneath a jewel room door. Something is tugging at me. I move on. In Bunhill Fields I am cold wind. In yew trees and in Bloomsbury the dogs prick up their ears. I am accelerating. I am fire. There is some force ahead that draws me on, some place of massive power that calls to me. My spirit is as fillings to its somber lodestone, as confetti to its grim and sparking amber. The church is shadowy, deserted, save for two men walking side by side below. There's something in their manner that I recognize. I'm moving closer. You know, Gull, this puts me in mind of some theories that my son Howard proposed to me. They suggest time is a human illusion, that all times coexist in the stupendous whole of eternity. He hopes to publish a pamphlet one day. Indeed, and how shall this pamphlet be entitled? What is the fourth dimension? Fourth dimensional patterns within eternity's monolith would, he suggests, seem merely random events to third dimensional percipients. events rising towards inevitable convergence, like an arcway's lines. Let us say something peculiar happens in 1788. "Have it the rogue, he slashed his girls behind. We've got him. He's been after girls all autumn, it's been in the broadsheets. This is him, Renwick Williams, this is the monster." A century later, related events take place. Then again, 50 years later. "Don't worry, Mary lass, you take your time. It were horrible. I were coming over Listen Lane from a toffee factory. He just attacked me." "Not just you, Miss Sutcliffe. 2 lasses over a Berks land were set on by a chap not 5 nights since. It's like that William Mason. Cut the lass in Manchester. I reckon we've had a slasher here in Halifax." Then 25 years. "My God, that poor girl. I want manner of inhuman creature could have done such a thing." "Hey, come on, Eddie. Give us a kiss, eh?" "I will you not get it arrest us. I'm trying to watch this." "There's only one field that could be responsible." "What do you mean, Expector?" "I mean that we are looking at the handiwork of Jack the Ripper." Then 12 and a half. "Another time, another man. I see you digging. You shall know my sacred labors. Can you hear me?" Peter Sutcliffe. An invincible curve rising through the centuries. Can history then be said to have an architecture, Hinton? The notion is most glorious and most horrible. Movement, and yet there is no movement. There is not space, there is not time, and therefore nothing moves, but only is. Christ Church plummets away beneath me, giant and pale into the darkness. Up, up. I am escaped from space into the sphere of mind and myth and angels. I am Jack. I rise up hungry through the human night towards a naked moon, which is the world's unconscious self, which is all poetry and dream. Ah! Oh God! Oh my God! Robert, whatever ails you, husband? You cried out. I had a dream. Awful, awful dream. My God, it was so real. As if he were here in this very room. Who, Mr. Stevenson? Who do you speak of? The man in my dream. I must write it down. He was a doctor with the soul of a terrible beast inside him. Women. He rampaged through London, trampling women. I am set free from flesh and time. I am become a symbol into the human soul. A fearful star in mankind's inner firmament, and still I rise, eternity itself shall not contain me. I flicker in and out of history. Below me is a house that I have seen before. Not long ago I sink towards it, filled with curiosity. An invisible curve, rising through the centuries. Up, up, out of the lunar and unconscious sphere, where are both masterpiece and murder, up towards a higher light. London again, and not so far from my own century, 1903, I think. There is a cold September brilliance. Masonic history, just as I promised. The cold stone sips its offering. Steam lifts from off the blood into chill city air, and I am rising, I am rising. I can feel the tug of my ascension, my becoming. I go up into the sacred, I go up into the gold. There waiting for me, oh sweet masters, masters, I am come among you. Above this there is naught save the last name of God. They seek not to prevent my ultimate ascent, but first, there's something they desire to show me. I move closer. That I see as I become.
Har du sett mig va? Jag har sett dig, du sett dig. Har du sett på mig? Sätt dig hos mig va? Jag har sett dig, du kommer inte undan. Sätt dig här hos mig. Det finns ett ställe på en gata långt från Rio de la Plata, där vi kan sjunga, vi kan prata och ta det lugnt. Där har jag blommor och choklad, marmelad, lite vin, kanske gin, så du kommer i stöten så jag kan knäcka nöten långt bort från en värld av förfalskad flärd. Ja, jag vill ta dit någon som är elit, någon som är som du. Ha, ha! Jag vill ta dit någon som är elit, någon som är som du. Titta på mig va, se vilken grej va. Hej min tjej, stanna här hos mig. Tjejen är tjusig, grejen är busig. Säg, har du sett på mig? Jag har ett ställe på en gata långt från Rio de la Plata, där vi kan sjunga, vi kan babba och ta det lugnt. Ha, ha. Där har jag blommor och choklad, marmelad, lite vin, kanske gin, så du kommer i stöten så jag kan knäcka nöten långt bort från en värld av förfalskad flärd. Ja, jag vill ta dit någon som är elit, någon som är som du. Ja, jag vill ta dit någon som är elit, någon som är som du. Tjejen, gillar du en som inte vill ha Cadillacs och slips? Ja, då kan du pysa, jag vill inte mysa. Nej, då får du ingen grej. Jag har ett ställe på en gata långt från Rio de la Plata, där jag ska sjunga, jag ska prata och ta det lugnt. Där har jag blommor och choklad, marmelad, lite vin, kanske gin, så jag kommer i stöten så jag kan knäcka nöten långt bort från en värld av förfalskad flärd. Jag tar inte dit någon som är elit, någon som är som du. Men nej, jag tar inte dit någon som är elit, någon som är som du. Inte om det sånt där snack.
Listener, you're stepping into the magic circle, Swedenborgian PTK, second Epistle. The joint, The Return of the Repressed and ParaPower Mapping retelling of the saga of the Salah Gang, the Luciferian tantric hypnotist Sigvard Thurneman's ritual murder ring that terrorized the electrical utility town and former mining town of Salah in Sweden in the late 20s and early 30s. We are once again casing the crime scenes, dropping occult implements and forensic ephemera into plastic baggies, like the Salah detectives leading the Caligari-esque criminal mastermind back through his hunting grounds, where he claimed his trophies. Speaking of, as a means of segueing back into this investigation, You just heard Marcus reading a selection from the Alan Moore Jack the Ripper graphic novel, From Hell. I'm sure the parallels don't need spelling out. We're now going to strap ourselves down and pore over the public's reaction to one of the Magic Circle murders, while taking many a flight of interjectional fancy as nuances, symmetries, and hypotheses arise in our minds, like the half-formed Lynchian visages that haunted Thurneman by his Yuletide hearth. With that, reminder to please support both Marcus and my work. You can find the links to our respective Patreons in the episode notes. Make sure to rate and review our shows and share with any prospective listeners. All right, let's get cracking. All right, so the first murder. Sven Eriksson was in his 40s. He worked as a taxi driver and was given the drive order to pick someone up at Stora Torget, the large square in Västerås? How do you pronounce
Västerås.
this? Västerås. Yeah. Västerås. Simply because he was next in line. Ivar Björkman. Yeah. Björkman. Ivar Björkman, who had received the order in the car center switchboard, joked and said that he wouldn't be upset if it turned out to be a boom run. Maybe he had a feeling that something was wrong. Perhaps because the man who ordered the car didn't immediately give his name. What? He said when Björkman asked for his name. Ivar Björkman had repeated the question. A short pause. Then the man had said, Gottfried Eriksson from Enköping. The confectionery at Stora Torget, where the coach would pick him up, was called Gottfried Johansson's Konditori.
That's like confectionery, yeah. Just means, yeah.
Right. The journey would go if
Enköping.
Can you interject on the ones that
sure,
I'm like
sorry.
absolutely mangling? Yeah. Like if I'm like totally destroying them, because I know I'm sure you have Swedish listeners, and I don't want them to just have to endure this like stupid American that's just fucking.
I think maybe you have some too. Enköping.
And shopping.
Yeah, when it's like the O with the two dots, right? It's like an sound.
Yeah. Okay. And the K is like a shopping sound?
Yeah, it's like a sh sound. It's not a k.
Not a k. Okay, so and shopping. Close enough. We'll hope. So the journey would go to Enköping, and he was alone, as he stated. Afterwards, the witnesses would have little more to say about the passenger than that he was in his 20s, well-dressed, and that he wore glasses and a light gray cap. He was slim, they also said, fairly tall, clean-shaven. A couple of witnesses noted the dark overcoat and that he had pulled up his collar and bent forward as if to hide his face as he sat alone in the back seat of the car. Ivar Björkman at the switchboard said that the customer was polite, his voice soft, quote, more feminine than masculine, end quote. It was a Friday evening in November of 1930. The weather was hazy, a couple of degrees, damp, though no rain. The body was found the following morning. A boy saw it and stopped a cyclist who was pedaling towards the bridge. Wait a second. Did we skip the death itself, or do we get to that a little further?
Yeah, I was thinking, it's not in this first account. It's going to be like retold later by Thurneman, right? Okay. To the psychiatrist.
Okay, perfect. Then I won't add extra detail. I was just we'll talk about the particulars.
Yeah, I was thinking
the like forensic detail a little later.
I was thinking we can do that like maybe in a future episode when we have like more of the murders, and then we can like go through them again and like look like what clues can we find in the murder. Now it's more like
Yeah.
since this is the first murder, I was thinking this is more like a setting of the feeling of like, how did this city react to this? Because
that makes sense. Okay, cool. So yeah, the weather was hazy. So basically, yeah, so we're kind of seeing this through the perspective of like the citizens of Sala, is kind of how you're framing
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so the body was found the following morning. A boy saw it and stopped a cyclist who was pedaling towards the bridge. The cyclist, who was a preacher called Oscar Carlson and was on his way into Sala, jumped off his bike and ran down to the stream where he saw what the boy had just seen. A large, fully clothed man lying on his back in the water next to the bridge abutment, with his left arm bent over his head and his head resting against the bank, wedged between some stones. Otherwise, the body would probably have gone with the strong current and might not have been found until much later. The face was bloated, covered in blood and dirt. Preacher Carlson ran over to Sorbo Farm, which was a short distance away on the other side of the road, where there was a telephone. The policeman who first arrived at the scene, accompanied by an office assistant and a driver, did not need long to realize that the man had hardly taken his own life, and therefore informed both the town bailiff, Helston, in Sala, and the bailiff at
Af, it's like Fon, but the Swedish version of Fon. So it's a noble person. Af Ekenstam in Västerås.
Off. Okay, got it. In Västerås. Okay. Wait, can you re-explain that for me again? The off
so
part?
Af is like the Swedish version of Fon. You know, like in sometime it's like Fon, blah blah blah. You know, it's a noble name, right? Like the German.
Okay,
Like,
got it. Yeah.
Von Rittenstorff or
So
something like, yeah.
Right.
And Af is,
So it denotes nobility.
yeah, most often.
Off. Okay, got it. So he suspected that the stains he had seen on the bridge and on the bridge railing were blood. The bridge over the stream was called Sorbo Bridge, located 5 kilometers west of Sala. It soon became clear that the dead man was Sven Eriksson, a taxi driver from Västerås,
Good.
who had been missing since yesterday evening. He had been shot twice in the neck, close together, 5 centimeters apart, probably from the same gun, but strangely, in one trouser pocket was found his wallet with 25 kronor and 75
Öre, yeah. It's like pennies.
Öre,
or cents.
like pennies, okay. So 75 öre in change and 105 kronor in banknotes in the inside pocket of his jacket. His wallet with 120 kroner in banknotes. In today's money, just over 6,500 kronor or $600. It was therefore decidedly not a robbery. A farmhand at Sorbo Farm told the police that when he had been reading by his window the previous evening, he had seen a car driving in the dark from the west and stopping at the bridge. The lights had been switched off, the engine revved and then stopped. After 8, maybe 10 minutes, the car had started and driven away, continuing in the direction of Sala. It was 10 to 9. He was sure of that. He had not seen anyone. The farmhand's testimony was confirmed by 2 agricultural laborers who, at about 9 o'clock the same evening, heard a car stop in the dark by the bridge, fell silent, and then continue after about 10 minutes. The tenant farmer at Sorbo Farm had thought he saw a car standing on the bridge with its lights off on the way to the stables, and assumed it was someone fetching water for the radiator. He had not seen anyone either. It had been just before 9 o'clock. The car, a cocoa-colored Overland Whippet, manufactured in Toledo, Ohio, 1927 model and with registration number U837, was found late that afternoon, a few kilometers further north. some way into the forest on the road to
Rosshyttan. Yeah.
Rosshyttan.
It's the loneliest Toledo, Ohio car in the world at this moment, I would say.
I can hear the country song already. Abandoned on a back road out by Rosshyttan, the loneliest car from Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah, spot on, man. You should make that one.
Something like that. Yeah, we'll drop it in. I'll strum a couple chords. And,
definitely.
Yeah. Both the front and back seats were soaked in blood. Presumably, the killer had gotten Eriksson into the back seat and then driven the car to Sorbo, out on the bridge, and dumped the body in the stream. Sven Eriksson was a strongly built man, weighing around 80 kilos. Translation for our American listeners.
Yeah, pounds is the hardest
for
one.
people like myself. Yeah. How many pounds?
150?
Yeah. 176. Okay, so, you know, yeah, depending on how tall he is. I mean, if he's like 5'8", he's like very stout. If he's 6'1", he's like, he could be sinewy and strong. Yeah, like pretty average.
It's a lot of weight though for one person, if it is only one person, to like move around in a car and out of it.
Oh, right, yeah, or to push over a bridge and into the water, right? Findings of leaves, sand, and gravel on the body. Findings of leaves, sand, and gravel on the body, also inside the clothes, in the nose, on lips, and the scratches on his face, indicated that he had been dragged on the ground, probably in a forward position. In the back seat, they found a pine branch and pine needles. Were they trying to cover up tracks, maybe?
Yeah, that
would be my read there.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. Perhaps the killer first tried to hide him from somewhere else, but canceled the attempt. Could a single killer have achieved all this? How had the killer got out of the car? Where would he have gone? Why was the car here, just outside Sala, when it was ordered in
Västerås,
for a journey to Enköping? Under the back of the car, the police found a bullet casing. The bullet that was found, which was flattened, was under the passenger side rubber mat and came most likely from a modern pistol, a Browning, with a caliber of 7.65 millimeters. The second bullet would prove to be lodged in the victim's head. On the right side of the front seat was a copy of
Arbetaren
from Friday, the 14th of November, 1930. Under the newspaper was Sven Eriksson's wooden clothes brush. The translation of this newspaper, Arbetaren, is the worker, which is a Swedish syndicalist newspaper. Founded in 1922, it has been published by the Central Organization of Swedish Workers, SAC, an anarcho-syndicalist trade union federation, first as a daily newspaper, then as a weekly magazine since 1958. One thing that I was just going to interject here, this is like a wonderment of my own. Yeah, curious what you think about this point, Marcus.
Yeah.
But so as we're going to see, Thurneman had connections to an Abwehr agent named Hans Link, right? This Swedish lieutenant and the propaganda chief of the Swedish National Socialist Party, who originally hailed from Bayern. And he was, I don't want to preempt too much of this, but yeah, maybe I won't mention all of this. But basically they were getting up to, because we can save this for a later episode, but they were getting up to some pretty shady stuff together with Thurneman and one of his co-conspirators. And so in Abwehr fashion at the time in the 30s, it appears that Link had organized a paramilitary, and that a number of the Magic Circle members were even like attending
Right.
these training sessions in the forests outside Sala by night. And so it's important to note regarding Link that they even mention in the book that you recommended to me. The English translation is Manhunter: The Story of the Swedish Occultist and Serial Killer Thurneman. They even mention that this guy Hans Link was like so up in arms and ready to bout with his leftist enemies
Yeah.
that, per the Manhunter book, the guy was picking bloody fist fights with leftists around town. So basically, my wonderment, or like half point, is just that I think, one would be forgiven for wondering if there could have been like any encouragement regarding the DMC's targeting in this instance.
Most definitely. Right.
Yeah. So I think that that's maybe like a theory that people can, keep in the back of their minds. And I'm curious what you think about that too.
I mean, I'm just interested in hearing like the things that you picked up on already, because that book I haven't gotten through completely, and there's less mention of his involvement in the other two books that I read. So I'm very, I've
Okay.
started to like get into him, but like I left him like for later episodes. But I also listened to like another Swedish podcast which did work more. Mainly on the occult stuff, but did mention offhand that there was like this Abwehr connection. And I also, of course, like you, assumed if maybe there is like a political nuance to the choice here of this person,
Yeah.
also because of the brutality of this killing, right? And that it's not a robbery.
Right.
Like they
leave the money because in
Yeah.
other instances they take it, right? Like their MO is generally to rob
Yeah.
people, but weirdly here they don't take any of the money,
Exactly.
which seems kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the one other thing that sorry.
I mean
Go
like
ahead.
the brutality that it's like so straight up like execution style, like just shooting somebody in the neck, like 5 centimeters apart, like from behind in a car, like outside on the countryside, like having him basically drive them to his own place of execution. That's what we get at least from this story, which seems about as cold-blooded as it can get, which is kind of, I guess, how a Nazi would relate to a syndicalist, considering that right now, like, the SAC is sending people to fight Franco in Spain, right?
Right. Yeah, that's some great historical context. I guess, I mean, since we're already into it, maybe I'll just mention the one other thing that the Manhunter book gets into as far as Hans Link. So there's both this paramilitary, these like target practice
Right.
and like shooting sessions, I think, that are organized in the forest, outside Sala. But then also apparently, let me see.
There's one curiosity about like his closest compatriot, whom we'll introduce later, who Thurneman always brags about him having been initially a communist, but that he managed to convert him.
Oh yeah, there's that too. Yeah, that wasn't even where I was going, but that's
because he was a member of one of those shooting clubs, as far as I know.
Right. Yeah, no. And that's also a very interesting point to make as it relates to this. It makes you wonder if he was even using hypnotic means to like convert that guy.
Right. And that's
like, it almost gives the Reichstag fire a little bit. And like Marinus van der Lubbe.
Yeah, and it would have been, not to be too coy, but it would have been like, the industrial diamond of his successes, right? To be able to hypnotize a communist to believe that he's a Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it may be that was the guy that one of them adopts some kind of like social Darwinist, or maybe even, like race science-y beliefs. A little later on too.
Oh, okay. I know that one of the hypnotists had such a suggestion, like one of the authors of Thurneman's favorite book. He has like an Aryan take on hypnotism, that like Aryans are both better at hypnotizing people and better at being hypnotized, apparently.
Interesting. But yeah, the thing that I was going to bring up, so I'll just quickly quote this, is that so Link, who originated from Bayern, Germany, had considerable experience with weapons and combat since he'd fought in the First World War, and furthermore was a lieutenant in the Swedish army. So it's like the Nazis had even embedded this Link guy in the Swedish military. I'm assuming he must have like Swedish heritage, though, or
Yeah,
relatives, though I'm not positive. Yeah, what do you think on that?
I don't know. Yeah, it could be. I mean, there's especially when you go higher up, like in the military, like officer grades. I think at this time in Sweden, I think you'd expect about 80% of them being of the nobility, because already like in the 1970s, it was more than half. So I think like in the 1930s, the interwar period, First World War, the number is probably much higher. And if he, and there's a like almost, not almost all maybe, but a substantial part of the Swedish nobility are from Germany, way back, So I'm sure you could
Right,
make such a
right, yeah,
claim, and yeah.
interesting. Um, so apparently, Link used his technological knowledge of weapons to teach Thurneman, who had been a yardbird during his military service, how to manufacture hand
Right,
grenades.
and they look
The
very
grenades
German.
later found, yeah, and the ones later found, well, we can skip that. But so there's both that they're manufacturing these hand grenades together, but then apparently.
I was thinking here about the gun. Browning that's an American brand, right? Isn't it?
I believe so. That's my impulse. Yeah.
Which is again this weird mix of American gangsters and Nazis. I don't think that movie has been made yet, but I mean that's what they're doing. I think that's like the lore that they are creating.
Right. Yeah. The other thing that I found really crazy though, as far as this link connection beyond the paramilitary and the grenades, was that so while Thurneman and Link devoted themselves to the manufacturing of hand grenades out of dynamite and metal tins, Hedstrom was working on a more advanced invention. He had invented an electrical ignition apparatus for field artillery cannons. The idea was to make it possible to be sheltered far away from the cannon and fire off a device with an electrical impulse or pulse sent remotely through a cable. During his experiments, he managed to fire off 4 remotely circuited revolvers placed some distance into the forest by pushing a single button. The revolvers were supposed to simulate cannons. Hedstrom gained his practical knowledge of artillery cannon construction from DMC member Ake Lindberg, who also had been in the Navy. So we have like a ton of military service here. But basically, Hans Link tries to set up one of these magic circle members with members of the the Third Reich Army and the German electro industry,
Right,
so
right.
that he can sell these detonators,
Yeah,
right?
like
So like,
automatic guns and automatic artillery pieces, right? It's basically like, well, it's an automatization that seems to be that you can use it for a lot of different things. Like, yeah,
right, yeah, it's basically like remote trigger,
yeah,
like a remote triggering system,
it's
right?
very
Like a very
specific.
early rudimentary
Yeah,
one. Yeah, and it would have a ton of like
yeah, spy uses and like
applications in the military.
and occult for
And I think
sure. Like, I mean, a fucking gun that shoots by itself, that's gonna creep out, anybody.
yeah, no, it's like giving Boston Dynamics like today, like this is the beginnings of like our like API, right? And
What's an API?
these artificial physical intelligence, I
Ah,
think, if I
okay, okay.
remember correctly, or like though I may be using the wrong term, but basically I'm talking about like the AI robots that they're designing, right, for different combat uses, and basically to displace like all of every laborer under
Hmm.
the sun, I think, is the ultimate end goal.
Like
uh,
those walking Black
of
Mirror
course.
dogs, right?
Right, exactly. Boston Dynamics, I think, is one of the most I believe it's Boston
Yeah,
Dynamics.
it's like the robot company, right?
Yeah, the robotics company that those dogs were based on, and they do other. They have like all these videos of robots doing like parkour and shit to show their mobility.
I see.
And they're more like, at this point, I think they're kind of, they're trying to build like Terminators essentially. But yeah, I was just saying there's like a through line from this to
For sure.
that.
Yeah.
But also, and I mean, talking about the occult aspect too, like you kept hitting on like this interesting interplay between like electricity, radio waves, and occultism and hypnosis. It's just fascinating how you have these like magical order members who are engaged in trying to,
that guy,
like,
Erik Hedström, wasn't that that was the name you said, right? Erik Hedström. He
Hedstrom's involved in the grenades, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you may be right. I can't remember. There's also Lindbergh is mentioned in that passage.
Yeah, but he was an electrician, for example. Yeah, and like taught himself how to make like dynamite, also like in teenage years or something. Same thing with Thurneman. Like he could make his own fireworks, spin, and different colors.
Yeah, I think you're right that it's Hedstrom who is doing the. He's designing the triggers.
Okay,
just to confirm, you're right. Yeah.
For sure. That's why I like, before I even knew all these things, I already thought that it was something off about them all having like the same, interest in explosive and a professional career in like electricity, or as electricians or like radio operators. It seems to be too specific to just be a coincidence. And here is like maybe one of the best examples, which, we would definitely have to like elaborate upon that later.
Right.
Did you have something more you wanted to say about like Link, or should I like read how this was like this brutality like that we just described, like in this closed public, like the environment of Sala, like how this is received, but like also on like a national level?
The only other point that I was going to make regarding this is just that I was going to say that those connections to me kind of coheres with an argument that maybe this hit could have had some sort of ulterior political motive, like we were saying, or that the Hans Link individual could have exerted some like influence over it, maybe.
It definitely gives. I've been like back and forth with this one, but there is something, they're asking sort of the right questions as well, with all this, like if it was a murder, or if it was like if it was an argument over payment, or if it was like a robbery. I think like these are some of the questions that will appear like in the newspaper here later. It's like, then why did the person have a gun with him in the car from the beginning, and why didn't he rob him? It makes no sense.
Yeah, and they also in the book that I have, the version that they kind of give, I mean, he doesn't go into much detail about this, but he almost portrays it as if there was a plan to murder some other woman, but then for whatever reason the taxi driver like got spooked, and so and so that what's his name, Thurneman then in turn like reacts to that because he thinks the taxi driver is going to take him back to the police precinct.
I do remember something about this.
It's mentioned very briefly. I don't know that it's like they go into so little detail about it that I'm not sure that it's convincing. But
let's keep it in mind, and see if it reappears.
But so that could be also something that would contradict the idea, though, that
it was picked like, at all. Because
that it was like targeted.
That's true, right? Like, because nobody, I think that's also something they will say here later. Like, if how could they know? Then I think the man at the switchboard must have been in on it as well, right? Like, because how could they know that he was gonna pick him up?
Interesting.
we'll see if like we come up with more details. So like how this is like received the day after, or in the weeks and months after. Sorry. Like, so first off, everybody at least is on the same page as we are, that like it was not a robbery, and nor then could the motives have been revenge, wrote at least Sala Allehanda, which is the local paper, on Monday, because I just suggested, no one knew that Sven Eriksson would get the order. According to like friends and close like comrades, etc., he had no enemies as far as was known. Either, quote, either the murderer is a fool, or, quote, either the murderer is a fool, or else he has had an inexplicable reason for the deed, end of quote. The newspaper wrote, the police leaned towards the view that the murder was unpremeditated, maybe an argument about something, perhaps the payment. But why had the perpetrator been armed? Tips and lead suggestions with all kinds of motives and possible circumstances started coming in from all over the country, even Estonia and Finland. One popular theory for a while was that it was connected to illegal alcohol smuggling and or a gang.
There it is.
And or a gang of Finnish Romas. I think this is what's also interesting. Like, there was like a longer list, and what's common of all, or many at least of those I read, like tips and leads from like the general public in Sala, were that like it's an outsider, which again gives us this kind of like Twin Peaky feeling, right? Of this like being a pretty isolated place, close together. And this is only increasing their feeling of isolation, you know, that outsiders are dangerous, especially in this case than Finnish Romas.
Yeah, this is pretty Lynch coded, this whole thing.
Yeah.
Actually, speak of the devil, speak of the, you know, R.I.P.
Yeah, sure.
Lynch just recently left us.
Did, yeah. But he had a knack for these ways of trying to materialize like the logic of dreams, right? Which, I mean, in a way, that is what
Very much
suggestion and hypnotism is doing as well, in a way, right? Like, it's really playing around with the barrier between the conscious and the unconscious. And so, which also maybe explains why there's so much unexplainable things about the murders, you know? Because you wouldn't assume a murder to be looking for, you know, geographical patterns in their own deeds, and that is somehow more important than, you know, making sure you have enough money for the next hit. The money is only going to increase, as we'll see later, that they you know, when there are robberies, and that they don't seem to bother with it. On some occasions they do, but already here, you know, like $600, it's why would you just leave it there? It's
right.
If you don't have other,
it's illogical.
If you don't have other more dream logic reasons for doing things. In a dream, you definitely don't pay for things, right? It's usually when you wake up.
Speaking of Lynch and dream logic, the one moment or anecdote in which I was going to relate to Lynch, regarding Thurneman, was his apparent vision. I think possibly when waking, he may have been in a kind of sleep paralysis or, you know, astral state of some kind. Though I'm not positive, but there's this anecdote that's given early on where he describes seeing this horrific visage of this like little man who's like crouched and like scowling at him.
No way.
by his Christmas tree.
That's like
he's
real
in, like,
gnome.
his family and it's like he's like a gnome or something, like, and it is so, like, I mean, just think of that, right? Like, that is so Lynchian,
sure.
right there. Not to use, I mean, that's like a terrible phrase,
but yeah, like
whatever.
that little person that is
it's very Twin Peaks. You have a little person, and literally, like in Twin Peaks: The Return, in the Black Lodge, in the Red Room, there is there's a tree as well that like figures very prominently into like Cooper's like disembodied journey through the as I remember it, through like the Black Lodge in the in the third season.
I haven't seen the third
There's
season
like
yet, but I take your word for it.
Oh, you got
Yeah.
to, yeah. It's, I mean, yeah, it's, I love Twin Peaks. I unabashedly.
Yeah, I tweeted now when this happened that like I'm now finally introduced my wife to Twin Peaks because she's seen 3 of the movies, and when we watched them, she was like, "These kind of films, like it makes you feel high, like watching them, even though you haven't taken any substance or anything." And I said, and I thought like, yeah,
Lynch's films, you're saying?
yeah, like
Yeah.
Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive we watched, and what's the one where she collapses on stage?
Blue Velvet, probably.
Is it Blue Velvet?
Or
It's one of the latter
where
ones.
she collapses on stage.
Yeah, she's like mimicking, right? It's all on a stage, like the whole.
I know there's a stage moment in Mulholland Drive.
Maybe it is Mulholland Drive that I'm thinking of. Never mind, but that's the feeling, I guess, that you get from it. And I feel now that I have to introduce her, and then I'll also do myself a favor because I'll be watching like season 3 as well. So and it's been so long since I saw the first 2 that I couldn't just start watching that out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No. I think when I watched season 3, I don't recall doing a rewatch prior to it.
Okay.
I'm due one myself. It would be fun. I also similarly, I don't think I've gotten my wife to watch any Twin Peaks or Lynch yet. So I should see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a rite of passage. Okay, so yeah, there are some like interesting things here going on the day after. The most tangible like of statements was by a person who firmly claimed that late on the night of the murder, he had not only seen the brown-colored cab at Roshyttan or Rosshyttan with its lights on, but also a motorbike in its wake, also with its light on. If so, that would explain how the killer got away from Rosshyttan after the car was driven into the forest. If true, then there were at least 2 people involved in the murder. A problem was that they had not yet caught the person who had made the claim. And that's another interesting, I think, reoccurring thing. Like, we'll see, we've mentioned it with the letters and stuff, that there's often like these anonymous tips. It seems like that the magic circle is maybe leaking, or maybe this is maybe like the most insane theory, but that maybe they want to get caught, or like that, like Thurneman maybe wants to get caught, because he thinks he's such a fucking genius that he like kind of wants, to take credit for it. I don't know, like, but we'll see what feeling we.
It's possible.
Yeah. Some days later, another taxi passenger serviced by the same company said that they had been overtaken by the car and that she had seen 3 people in the back seat, which Eriksson's colleague partly confirmed. The conspiracy seemed to be growing each day. So like Eriksson's colleague, right, like was driving that taxi, and he partly confirmed it. He said it wasn't clear because it was raining, and like, the windows were like, humid, and it was difficult to see. But at the same time, he was driving, so he's mainly like making sort of like a mansplaining as to whether this woman could have seen what she had seen. I mean, why not just take her, on her word? Like, if she looked out the window and saw 3 people as the car overtakes them, maybe she did. Anyway, more and more people are being introduced to the story in the newspapers, little by little. And 2 of the country's biggest newspaper, DN, Daily News, and SvD, the Swedish daily pamphlet, Blad, like, the Swedish daily newspaper, one of the big ones, as well as plenty of other local papers, ran front-page stories for more than a week and would return to the story again and again throughout the year. There would be a total of 51 murders that year, but no other murder came close to receiving that amount of attention. And this is like just general statistics. We're not saying that they killed 51 people, the Sala gang in one year, but that's like roughly how many murders there were each year in Sweden at the time. And nothing, received this amount of attention because the murder was simply so brutal, so puzzling, and with such an innocent victim. Long after the murder, fear remained in the community. Arthur Järpe tells in his book Sala-ligan how as a 10-year-old he lived in fear of a visit by the killers in the lonely house where the family had lived. Quote, I remember clearly how afraid I was to go to sleep at night, and every time I heard the rattle of a vehicle on the road, I would get into bed and peek out from behind the blinds to see if it stopped outside our gate, end of quote. Which, I don't know, it's just... because he's so young, so I was thinking kind of like my son as well. Like, I think I would probably move away from here if there was a murder. Like, I also live in a very small town, like I said earlier. And if there was a murder here, I don't think I would keep on living here. But of course, maybe these people don't have the same choice. I moved in here recently. I don't have the same kind of roots or anything. This sort of, this suggestion of like viewing this out of like the eyes of a child, like you really sort of feel the terror, right? That like, no, you really can't trust anybody. It's sort of what this incident seemed to have instilled in people. He says further, his father, who had acquired a revolver during this time as a shipbroker in North Africa, had kept the weapon tucked away in a drawer. Now he took out the revolver and put it where he could easily reach it at night. And similar security measures were taken in many other homes, especially in rural areas, in isolated houses and farms, where hunting weapons were taken down from the walls, cleaned, and made ready for use. The preacher, Oskar Karlsson, who had been down by the stream and then informed the police, claimed that an unknown car had driven several times to his cabin at the edge of the forest, stopped and stood there for a while as to indicate that they knew where he lived. The same day as Eriksson was buried, a new film premiered at the local cinema. Many of those who went to see it, and even some newspapers, drew connections between the film and the recent event that had shocked the nation. It was Night Ride, a 1930 American pre-code gangster crime film set in Chicago. The Swedish title was literally the Chicago Underworld. It seemed as if a new terror had reached even the rural countryside of Sweden. But could Al Capone really be behind this? Question mark. Some people ask themselves with more serious consideration. Okay. How long have we been going now? We've been...
We're at 2 hours and 18 minutes currently. Though, of course, that was with, we chatted for like
Oh, yes.
20 minutes or something. I mean, we can maybe include some of that, but like,
Oh, yeah.
we've got some B-roll on the front there.
Right. What's the time for you?
It is 11:24 p.m.
Do you want to do like maybe one more? I don't think we can do all of it then because it's getting late and we already did 2 hours. Should we do like maybe one more, see how we feel, and then?
Yeah, sure. That's fine with me. And maybe I could do another session if you wanted to get through, because this won't get us all the way through what you had
right,
what you laid out for like an initial episode. I could do another session sometime in the next few days or week or something.
Yeah, that sounds good. We can do it. I don't think I have anything the next weekend coming up. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I can do it during the week as well because I'll just have to move downstairs where there's nobody if we go later into the day.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I'm actually like if we do this, if we do these hours as well, it's actually my mornings. So then it doesn't really matter. My wife will be at work and my son at the kindergarten. So if you have time during the week as well, unless you're working, let me know.
Yeah, no, I can do this kind of hour again. That's not an issue.
Right.
Maybe even a little earlier next time if it's on a weekday, but
yeah,
I can definitely do it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how we feel after this part, and then let's book something.
So we're gonna do dive into Nelson becoming Manhunter.
That's right. Let's try to do it. So for this part, and actually like the intro, I used 2 books by author and literary critic and investigative journalist Arne Sundelin, who passed away in 2015. Like just a little bit of information about him because he's like one of the biggest researchers of this case. So like it's said, at least in Sweden, that like his writing about Bob Dylan, he made like one of the most famous biographies of him that came out in Sweden in 2012, was one of the major reasons that Dylan received like the Nobel Prize in 2016, a year after he died, after Sundelin died.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure if like that's the case, but it is supposed to be a very good biography. And but for our purposes, he has done like some of the most extensive research on the magic circle and Sigvard Nilsson, aka Thurneman, Manhunter. In particular, as his mother was in her youth best friends with Sigvard's sister, Birgitta. So he has like some actual like personal connections. He could ask his mother. I mean, his mother was dead by the time that he started to get like investigatively interested in this, which he sort of laments in the book. But he had already had many conversations about Sala Ligan in general, or like the magic circle, with his mother. Which I think must have fueled like his initial interest, etc. So a substantial part of his work is based then on the material collected by psychiatrist Olof Kindberg, who we've alluded to a few times. And he's also an interesting character, actually, because he's the first director during the institutionalization of the first forensic psychiatric clinic in Sweden. Like, he is the big spokesperson for this approach to like be able to forensically analyze criminals, and like to be able to, rather than receiving lifetime imprisonment, you can receive maybe lifetime care, like in an asylum or something. And he was the like, because of his fame, and like he was like the one person people would think about when considering forensic psychiatric care in these days, or analysis. Of course, he was later the evaluator of the members of the Sala gang. Like, this was his designation. And Kinberg was also the first to evaluate Hermann Göring, the Nazi leader of the Luftwaffe, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and I've been to that asylum, interestingly enough, Långbro Mental Asylum. It's not too far away from where I used to work, and I used to work as a personal assistant around Stockholm. And Göring was there for his morphine addiction. Like he had a morphine-induced psychosis, like which was very anti-Semitic. And I remember me and the person I took care of. He was a guy with like cerebral palsies, and it was like really funny because I read the article or like some of the papers about Göring to my to this guy with the cerebral palsies, and he was like looking at me, and it was like quiet, and then he was like, Göring is fucking mental. And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, you're quite right. This is not a healthy person. Yeah, and yeah, so Kinberg, like, you know, like in his like analysis of Göring, he has very like low rating of Göring. You know, like he doesn't seem to be convinced by like his Nazi rants, right? Like his premature Nazi rants. I don't think he's a member of the Nazi party at this time, or maybe he was already. But that shouldn't make us think that Kinberg is somehow, you know, doesn't have Nazi convictions of his own, or like Aryo-heroic convictions anyway, because he was also the vice chairman of the Swedish State Race Biology Institute, which is founded around this time. So he is like at the pseudoscientific forefront of Nazism. But he has, his relationship to Sigvard Nilsson will only, like, I think, become more complicated, the way that he really engages with the occult. Because I guess you would assume, you know, a scientist at this time who's already dealing with something that's quite problematic, which is forensic psychiatry. I mean, we could easily presume a tendency to be like overly rational in order to be sort of, yeah, I don't know, convince the scientific community that forensic psychiatry is a real thing. I think the last thing you want to do is maybe to start talking in occult terms and talking about magic and talking about, you know, all these things that are very real to Thurneman. But he seems to be engaging quite a lot, like, you know, asking very, you know, questions that indicate that he knows something about what it is that Thurneman is talking about. I don't know how much you read of his papers, Clonny, but didn't you get like a similar feeling that like this person is actually quite, he's definitely not dismissive of it?
To my knowledge, I don't think there's a lot on Kinberg in the book. There were a couple portions in the last like 30 pages that I kind of had to skim.
I see.
Just because I've only had the book for the last day and a half. But I don't think.
But that's good
much.
though. Then I have something to do until the next or the third recording, maybe. Try to find maybe some translation, or try to make some translation if I can find like digitalized versions of these OCR recorded ones, because I think there's a lot of insights to be drawn from the way that he.
Yeah, no, it sounds fascinating. Yeah. I'm like, it's also immediately making me think of the anecdote about him treating Göring is making me think of Hitler's institutionalization as well, and his hypnosis.
Right.
Right, like his hypnotic treatment too, which is interesting that like the both of them seemingly prior to, you know, well, I guess like you were saying, we're uncertain whether Göring was already a Nazi or not, but like either in the early days of Nazism or...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a Nazi already, but like I don't know if he had joined the NSDAP already, because he's aristocratic, right?
That's what I mean. I mean more like officially, like the party apparatus is what, you know, the NSDAP, contrary to like ideologically a Nazi, of course, he would have already been. But I'd be very interested to learn more about Kinberg for sure.
All right, so in like Sundelin, like the investigative journalist, he says that when reading like these papers and trying to like make characters out of the people mentioned, like it's a great curse, and I think both you and me can also agree with this, that like when you are dealing with like non-fiction and you're still trying to like write something together, like the production of characters is much more difficult because like they produce so many contradictions. Like, you know, it's hard to sort of see who are they, you know, like because you get information from different sources, so it's like a mosaic that needs to be like fitted together. um and but even then, like this is true for like many of the characters in this story, but I think for Sigvard Nilsson, who is to become Thurneman, we can nonetheless conclude, like, you know, that he was, by most accounts, like of different, you know, witnesses and professionals involved in this, throughout most of his life, a very timid, shy, and quiet oddball. His mother and sister remember him as someone who never got angry, but was never quite happy. According to his childhood friends, it was a great thrill to allow oneself to, from time to time, be absorbed into his fantasy world of strangeness. He was his own man, his cousin said, not like other children, but we liked him anyway, quote unquote. He had a strange way of playing, talked a lot of nonsense, would always seem mysterious. All these fantasies, talking about them, quote unquote, as if they were real. Robbery coups, white slavery, and whatever it was. But that was when they were a bit older, he adds. He would nibble at his younger brothers, or like pick fights with his younger brothers sometimes when the adults didn't see it. Invited them to have a candy and go to the cinema a few times. Started doing magic tricks with the cousins and the neighbor kids lined up as an audience. Got better and better, more and more confident. Thought transference and hypnosis came later. The cousin adds, for a long time he ate the same food every day. You can't take someone like that seriously. Which, yeah, I'm guessing that has something to do with his yoga practice. And Sala, at the turn of the century, was an ideal place for a child to produce an alternative reality. As hinted at already, the city made no fuss. Built on the plain between the silver mine and the smeltery, surrounded by fertile farmland, vast forests, and the waters that had served the mine for centuries, it lived seemingly unaffected by world events, spared from accidents other than two fires, on Friday 10th of August 1736 and Friday 13th of September 1880, which destroyed large parts of the town. Although Sala lay along the highway between Stockholm and Dalarna, few people bothered to stop, many taking the road via Västerås instead. The town had somehow lingered, characterized by a quiet old-fashionedness, as Nordic Family Book put it, one of the major national encyclopedias at the time. Children were born and old people died, but rarely did a stranger move in. The whole town became like one big family, writes Johan Lundberg in his memories of his childhood in Sala, which would manage without the help of outsiders, with shared joy and common worries. Enclosed and closed are other words for the same thing. Sigvard's father, Adolf Nilsson, moved to the city in 1895, the same year that the police were allowed to carry sabers, like they were first allowed to do that. He ran a gentleman's clothing store at the center of town, surrounded by cafes and plenty of other stores that all catered to three distinct classes in price and quality. There were 3 stationery shops, 3 bookbinders, 3 music shops, 4 shops filled with watches and optics. Alins Sundströms, Arvid Janssons, and Nya Clock Shop. The New Clock Shop is the literal name of the last one. All of which gradually settled on modernities such as photography, radio, and gramophone discs. Always news, good sorting, quote unquote. There were several bicycle shops and workshops, and for some time also Melin's Car and Motor Stock Company, Turnblom and Anderson's Car and Motor Repair, Gunnar Westerberg Car and Motor Repair, Leidström and Johansson's Car Shop. At Fisher's Square, grocery stores were located in almost every block. Some specialized in fish or charcuteries or dairy or fruit and confectionery, most with a wider range. Behind the door with the bell was the smell of soap, freshly ground coffee, aged cheese, and fresh yeast. Among them was the J.W. Unger on Courthouse Street, who proudly advertised about quote, extra fine coffee blends, preserves, fruits, spices, end of quote. And K.A. Anderson's Colonial Goods Company, with its own coffee roastery, the Olympic brand, the first in the city with a large and undivided shop window. Sala's largest grocery store was Cooperativa, with 1,000 members and 5 stores. Quote, fresh pork, veal, and beef every day, smoked ham at the lowest day prices, end of quote. There were also market stalls on Wednesday and Saturdays, like local markets, like farmer markets. The father was initially successful and made a small fortune during the First World War with orders from the army, most of which he would eventually have drunk up by the time his son was a teenager and asked to work in the failing shop rather than to continue his own studies. The father started drinking in the morning and would continue. If he got cross with a customer, it was not uncommon for him to bash him in the face inside the store. Sigvard, which is wild, like that's a hell of a functional alcoholic, but like on the cusp of not being functional.
God, no kidding.
Which is, it's crazy that like he would like collect a small fortune. Like for example, like the investigative journalist's sister, right? Like who was friend with Thurneman's sister. Remembered him like they were well off, like they lived in a big mansion, and we're gonna see later.
And all the while, he's this dysfunctional alcoholic that literally is just giving like his customers the 1-2 punch, in his haberdashery, like if every day if they just put one toe wrong.
And I'm wondering, like that couldn't have been, he like it's clearly. Like it's failing the shop later, so he couldn't keep that up for a while. I think he made most of the money out of these army orders, which were like huge. And I think he was like,
and that's another crucial point. Yeah. There are all of these rampant and repeated military connections among many of the DMC members, right? And that was something that I glommed onto too, that he was doing the military, the army supply work, and filling those orders seems significant as far as kind of like the cultural realities out of which DMC ultimately cropped up. And then it also kind of, it aligns with like if we're trying to do a proto PTK reading, like that is kind of quintessential PTK, right?
Yeah, because like Sweden stayed out of the First World War, right? And but the aristocracy and the king wanted to join the war, and a lot of the high bourgeoisie as well, obviously, like those of war industrial interests,
right?
And so this taking place, in the interwar period, where it's coming, it's gonna be gradually more apparent. Probably, especially after like the civil war starts in Spain, right? Like around the mid 1930s, like slightly after, like in the middle of like these murders taking place, and then by the time the Nazis get to power in 1933, like everything is pointing towards another war. Maybe after already 1929 and the Bush crash, the stock crash. So there are people, I guess, who would like to see like a heightened tension, maybe as well,
right?
And that maybe that's a more of a strategy of tension interpretation than PTK, but of course they overlap, right? Like, and we have like a third of like just pure satanic terror as well possibility. So yeah, we're still in the early days of hypothesis here, right? But like. The fact that the shop is failing is, I think, also interesting, because there's going to be like more and more talk about like where does Thurneman get his money from later, which is a big question. And so that they were already well off when he was young, interesting. And Sigvard, had, like, so Thurneman when he's young, I'm referring to him as Sigvard, like before he became Thurneman. So Sigvard had a
Right.
psychic grandmother on his mother's side who hated the father. His mother was not a psychic herself, but had, it was rumored, inherited some of her mother's qualities. She would often know when Sigvard was about to return home, even if he had been gone for, days, and often timed the arrival to such a degree that the food would be standing steaming hot on the dinner table for him as he arrived back unannounced.
In the Manhunter book, this ability of his mother's to like sense Sigvard's approach
Yeah,
almost gets portrayed as, or to me, it almost read as if like Sigvard's like aura or emanation is, or almost like astral projecting like into
yeah,
the home, prior to like even arriving there too,
yeah,
because there is, as we'll hear later on, there is talk of him. He does actually seemingly astral project, even from like in accordance with the interviews with his like psychotherapist or forensic psychiatrist,
yeah.
right? He described like projecting and seeing his surroundings as if from above, at one point in like the recorded conversations, but yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that literally that he was like
Yeah,
astral projecting
yeah,
the home, but I think it's interesting that it's like,
yeah, that's what I was a little bit thinking about there with, like, the degree that this psychiatrist take these things serious enough. And I think also there is one point, like you already suggested, that I think the intelligence or the police, right, had already made use of the services of somebody with like supposedly like supernatural or clairvoyant abilities. And I think when Thurneman also is allowed to go around with the police after they've been caught and show like where the murders took place and things like that, I think there's also some suggestion among the police, like that this is maybe a real thing. And I think at one point,
right.
uh,
It also almost gives familiarity to the way in which they tour him to like the crime
yeah,
sites, and he kind of like willingly assists them.
yeah,
Are you almost like floating a theory that he could have been doing some like psychic detecting for the police, and
I
almost,
think that's what I
I mean,
saw
because they did used
suggested.
to,
That's what I saw suggested,
yeah.
that like maybe, because that's the thing, right? I think in the book that you read, she also points to
Oh yeah,
some,
Hanussen does
yeah,
that a ton.
and
Yeah.
and also there is a suggestion in the English book or in the Manhunter book that there are also a lot of other murders that took place during this time that are still unsolved, and that there has been a lot of speculation as to whether, do we know all the murders that these people are involved in? Like, there
Right,
could be
right.
quite a few
Because
more.
they stole 40 vehicles in anticipation, like when building up for their their serial
Really,
killings, right?
40
They're like literally,
vehicles. Wow,
yeah, that's what the Manhunter book
that's
says. It says
crazy.
they stole 40 cars, which seems, yeah, to me that was like
Yeah,
mind-boggling,
because it
that they
suggests a
would have
bigger
that they
circle
would
for
have
sure.
carjacked. Yeah, not just a bigger circle, but also just like you carjack in the late 1920s and early 1930s in Sweden, in like not even the capital,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like a city of 8,000 people, and some of these surrounding villages, and you steal 40 cars.
Yeah, that's every car. Yeah, that's every car
That's
in
like almost
that.
right. Yeah, like there's not that many
Yeah.
cars in the area. So the notion that this ring of car thieves and murderers could have gotten away with
Hmm.
that, like to me, that also really smacks of a kind of
Yeah,
protected
yeah.
individual situation,
Actually, the
where,
one situation where a police officer is talking to who will later become our informant, I remember that conversation begins, according to him, with the police officer, or he's even the police chief, I think, of Sala, saying, looking at the car that Thurneman is driving past in, and saying something, to the degree of like, where the fuck does he get his money? Like that, it's like the latest car, like a really new American Like I
Right,
can't remember
yeah.
which one it is. But we'll get there like eventually. But like, you know, that is sort of what, at least in that conversation, perks his
Yeah, no, I
antenna.
remember what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
and if it's 40 cars, it's like, I mean, come on, man. Like where did they hide them all? And like, how did people not know that it was him? It must have been like a sort of pretty well-established unspoken truth that, like, you know, it's probably these people, but that like nobody dared to say anything, or there was like
Right.
it's interesting. Wow.
Because maybe he had a iron grip on Sala, like a Dr. Mabuse,
Yeah,
this
right.
this criminal mastermind who he's terrorized the public into believing that he has these hypnotic powers that, you know, because there's the anecdote where he gestures behind a girl's back at a party and she collapses and he
Wow.
like catches her. And then there's the other one where he, you know, he does all of these hypnotic feats and displays around town. Oh, the best one is there's a moment where this like mentally ill like vagrant guy
Oh yeah, I didn't read about
who
that.
would like apparently he would like fight people in the town square.
Okay.
And at one point he was really digging into Thurneman and was, you know, he was talking shit to him, and I think he was telling him he was like dressing in a snobbish fashion,
yeah.
which I'll also point out, like Thurneman, for people, for listeners, hopefully you'll get to see like visuals of him sooner rather than later. Or if you're listening to this, I'm sure you'll see visuals of him
No suit
and
fits him.
images, pictures. But yeah, that he looks, to me, he gives like an emaciated, like rail thin white duke. Like he's kind of got this like, he almost reminded me a little of like David Bowie or something. Like the face is completely different.
Yeah.
But I also like went to the Thin White Duke Bowie albums immediately, because those were like some of Bowie's most satanic records. And like very occult coded ones, where like during those recording sessions he was holding like he exercised his pool at one point.
What does that mean?
Because he believed
Exercised.
he believed the pool in this
The
like
swimming
LA
pool.
manse in Hollywood. Yeah, the swimming pool. He believed it had become possessed, that there was an entity living in it, because he had been living on like cocaine and ice cream and peppers for like a year or something.
Diet.
For like an incredible diet. But yeah, he was reading like a bunch of Dion Fortune and like Kabbalah and all of these things, and
I didn't know about
and he
that
was hanging out
side.
in LA. Yeah, and he exercised. Well, his last album, like Black Star, is also just full of like
reference.
occult symbolism, and reference for sure. But yeah, he tried to exercise his pool, and that was like during the I think that was Station to Station's like recording cycle. But the Thin White Duke is, you know, Young Americans and Station to Station, as I remember it, like the character in those two albums. But Thurneman gives like a little bit of that vibe in the way that he appears.
There's something very awkward about like his like, I have never seen him move, but it seems like his mannerism,
and also alien.
Yeah,
he just has a little bit of an alien look,
but also in a way that, you know, he's self-confident about it. I think he likes the fact that he is this oddball in a way, you know, because if he works in a gentleman, like his very profession for the, you know, the throughout his teenage life is to fit people with suits. So why does he wear suits that are too big for him, for example? You know, all the pictures, like the
I guess
the
some
pants
of,
are folded up and like and it's like, I don't know. Yeah, go on.
Well, I guess I was just going to say that some of it may have been the stylistic choices of the time, because weren't like zoot suits sort of
padded shoulders?
I mean, the baggy pants, and like that kind of thing were, and you know, kind of bulky like jackets and stuff were definitely in.
That's true.
During that period. But
that would explain a lot of it, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. We need to ask the Twitter menswear guy.
Yeah.
Just joking.
I don't know who that is.
What is he? It's a annoying account.
Okay.
I'm just joking.
I see.
He's just like the, you know, someone that does the like menswear ratings of like
there's plenty of those
people
in the
on
manosphere.
Twitter. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think he's in the manosphere. It's gives that vibe.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, now when you talk about David Bowie, like, and his occult, I remember now, like, have you seen that his movie, right, The Labyrinth, with all the puppets from the same
You know,
company that made the puppets for Star Wars?
right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've actually seen all of Labyrinth ever.
Okay. It's
I've seen portions of it. I know that yeah, I've seen like some of the dance sequences, and I think it was put on once when I was at a friend's,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure. I don't think I saw the entire thing.
It has a lot of like, I mean, it's fantasy, high fantasy. So of course there's going to be like a lot of things that could be interpreted as occult, you know. But it's just like a spooky atmosphere, especially with the puppets and everything, you know, because puppeteering very
Right,
closely
yeah.
related to hypnotism in the way that, you know, Thurneman's going to get interested in it. But
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know, like, yeah, that is actually kind of the, especially, you know, going back to like the gnome that was foretelling him something, and how he's like receiving messages from these, yeah, high fantasy creatures basically, is also such a weird, because he, time and time again, when he's talking about his own actions, he seems to be past the point of making believe, you know, like it's already so much a part of his unconscious that all this fucked up shit that he wanted to believe him is already convincing him of things, you know, like he's in a way
Right.
no longer in charge, you know, like this is
Right.
like a record that he wanted to break that has broken and is playing up things for him, and he takes it as like a, you know, as affirmative as an order can be, you know, being his own will.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it's exactly the like gnomish visage, like the little person with the terrifying face that he saw by the Christmas tree, or this other vision that he had. But later in the Manhunter book, it describes how this is maybe in the second part, the like ideology and inspirational
Oh, is
sources. I'm
it
not
the
positive, but
slightly witch-like woman in the forest who is definitely dead but who
no,
talks to him?
no, I don't know if I know that one. That's not what I was thinking of. There's another like astral projection vision that he describes where he saw like an evil figure,
Okay.
and it's like he describes it as like a manifestation of like evil power,
Uh-huh.
and it kind of like I have to go back and look at the passages. It almost seemed like it was getting not conflated, but like merged with the vision that he had at of the Christmas tree gnome.
Okay.
Like they were combining the two
Yeah.
things, but basically, Tournament comes to describe this astral projection vision of
Yeah.
this kind of like evil angel, which
Very
it's
Luciferian.
almost like at first he believed it to be like a personification of the
Mm.
devil, but then he changed his mind, and it wasn't like Beelzebub, which he actually talks about
Yeah, he does.
Beelzebub a lot more
Yeah.
than like the devil for whatever reason. But he changes his mind and decides that the vision that he had wasn't Beelzebub, but instead that it was like showing him his evil, like Atman, or if that's how you
Oh, yeah,
pronounce
yeah.
it, like
Yeah, Atman.
yeah, Atman, like
The peace of the soul.
yeah, like the higher
Mm-hmm.
self,
Mm.
right? But in like his case, it's like this corrupted tantric evil
Yeah.
version. And
Almost
so like
holographic
Tournament
then, if
believed
he like changes his mind about it. Like sometimes it's maybe a little bit more evil, sometimes it's maybe a little bit a force for good, or I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
Uh,
The way I remember Manhunter describing it was that it became this. It was like this vision for him almost became this justification for his evil behavior combined with some of his tantric
mm,
beliefs, and that he actually believed that he was almost like like duty bound to break the divine laws
yeah, yeah.
of the universe, like within his weird syncretic like Hindu and like Hindu, Buddhist, and Luciferian conception.
Yeah.
It was like he believed that his nature was evil, and therefore he has to be evil. And in some ways, that doesn't mean, in his language, I think, at least as how this is translated, it's like, the thing is, though, you cannot, like, evil doesn't equal sinful. So,
Yeah.
he's like duty bound to be evil is how he saw it, seemingly.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's like, I don't know,
It's very
out of place within this like almost like Gnostic or Manichaean sort of framework or something.
I think that is the problem when you get into like I think Luciferian and satanic begriffsapparat, like conceptual apparatus, because if he is not evil, like if this figure of like of the adversary is not evil, like what's sort of the point? Like you lose the thrill, right? If Lucifer is just another angel, like what's the, like there's going to be like this kind of fetishistic disavowal in the way that you relate to this quote unquote evil, like that maybe you are on a level where evil is justified, or like you need to construct a very contradictory relationship to right and wrong in order to like, and I think that is of course where the terror comes in, that like you just kind of want to get excited, I think, in the end, like that there's like this stimulus and you need to be so confused that you can actually commit murder and not really know what you're doing. You need to like have, because he also talks about like how there is no conscience, right? Like that this is just this feeling of having done something wrong is just like a mind ghost, basically, that you need to conquer. And so it really fits with what you just described, even though I didn't read those parts. But I think like I think this image, we're going to learn more and more about it, considering that we saw the that picture that we talked about earlier of Dr. Andersen or Andersen. I really hope that there are some pictures, some sketches that they asked him to make of some of these creatures, because that would be another great way of trying to map this, to see if we can find people who have depicted them in the same way. He must have learned of them somewhere. I don't believe this is spontaneous and actually like an existing spiritual realm. I think, like he was interpellated to do this.
Related to that, on that note, again, we keep kind of like hinting at this or prefiguring it, but one of our prospective Dr. Anderson's this Ben Kadosh individual, he met up with Rudolf Steiner.
Of course it is.
At
Of course it is.
Yeah. So speaking of gnomes, and so not just isn't just connected to Theodore Royce from the OTO, but also Steiner, and to my knowledge, I mean we'll get into this more later, but this guy was like
connected.
I'm really kind of like losing my mind as to how many, like he's just yet another node within this larger like fin de siècle and early 20th century occult environment.
Matrix.
Like I've spent matrix that I've like tried to, or rhizome or something that I've tried to like spend a fair bit of time like mapping in like the earlier, especially like earlier PPM stuff, because he's connected to like these French Rosicrucians,
and
this American Rosicrucian Society, but he's also a Luciferian simultaneously, which is so weird. Or at least he was like a Luciferian earlier, because like Rosicrucianism is much more like Protestant and like Christian coded. It's like Christian alchemical, at least in some of its like manifestations. Like Rosicrucianism is like, it doesn't jive so much with like Satanism.
No, it doesn't.
At least in some of my conceptions of it, or like how like some of the stuff I've learned about it.
But I think the Martinism connection is more maybe like
Ooh, that's very
yeah,
interesting
I think
too.
that's the bridge between those two, because that's when it starts to get political as well, where you don't just have occult explanations why you should do evil, but you have fascist explanations why,
Mm,
let's turn Christianity into, something very murderous.
right.
Yeah. All right. So, and talking about like occult bridges, then, like we were talking a little bit here about the grandmother, right, who doesn't like the father, and we'll end this sort of part about Thurneman's, very young youth, that like the grandmother became, according to his siblings and himself, like she would have retold stories of herself as a young girl, the grandmother would, to her grandchildren, how she had seen like mirages of like asatru hordes and creatures, like asatru being the Viking belief system, right, flocking to the other side of the
Wow.
lake where she lived. And in this way she became, like the children's link to this like folklore and beliefs of centuries past. And yeah, I mean, he's living in a place where Sala was, I think, Sala is the old Viking word for a place where you would trade and buy things. So I believe it was a marketplace, or like a small, or yeah, I don't know, it could be big at certain times, but yeah, a marketplace already in those days. So
Interesting.
yeah, that's how Sigvard, when he was a kid, like how he grew up, I guess. I think it was like I think like the listener, even if they're from America and maybe from Sweden, but haven't been to Sala. I've been there because I have family there, but um, like maybe, yeah, I think this part gave us a little feeling of like what kind of, yeah, we can't just say it's Twin Peak-esque. Now we also, yeah, have like the comparison to make and confirm that it is quite, it's something unheimlich about this place, something uncanny.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that clairvoyant inheritance is interesting too. The way that it seems like this farsightedness, or like this ability to have visions, has been passed down from his grandmother somewhat to his mother, and then to him, is also fascinating.
Hmm.
And it's also interesting the way in which his mother, like a lot of her like extrasensory perceptions, seem to be like anchored around her son too. It's like,
Yeah, she seems to.
that's the way she experiences some of this weird, like extraordinary um
Yeah,
stuff, right? Is in relation to her son, is kind of
yeah,
interesting.
and she seems to be in the interviews. She's the one who, I think he confided in her a lot, telling her about, like, at least before they started doing murders and stuff. He was like telling her about his so-called spiritual progress, telling her about, and this will be like the next section. But I think maybe we will stop here somehow, and then in next episode we will start talking about like how he met his guru. But like, yeah, a lot of that information we get from the mother, even though, and that's the interesting thing, once again, a lot of lies, like a lot of like obvious lies in the way that he tells the story, but for pretty like specific reasons, which is to, well, with pseudonyms obviously, to cover up the true identity of the people who are involved in this inner circle, or maybe even the triangle then at the center of the circles, which is, yeah, like the guru and the people around the guru, and the yeah, I guess other gurus then in plural, to hide their identity, but also to hide their geography, right? Like the way he talks about speeds and distances, like nothing adds up. But I don't know, like, yeah, because now we've been going like 3 hours. Did you think? I think that's a pretty like juicy. I had imagined another cliffhanger, but like the cliffhanger of the topic meeting the guru, I think that's also a pretty good one. Since we've
Yeah,
given out so many hints about who he might be and what they might be up to, that yeah.
I think that this works well to, kind of, tease the guru's entrance in like a subsequent part. And
Yeah.
I mean, we can also revisit like sequencing or something when we do the next session. And if you decide that you want to make the first episode longer and include it,
Yeah.
that also that could also make sense. But I mean, I think that this would work just as well too.
Right. It's like halfway,
myself.
exactly halfway now also in the text, because it goes to 20 and then it's like the last 5 pages is just damaged stuff like that, or like incomplete things.
Right. Though I'm sure that we'll tie up, or expand on many of those threads as time goes on.
For sure.
So
Yeah. Has to be
the
done.
doc will get bigger. But I mean, we also preempted a lot of stuff, right? Like I think the listener has a good sense of like where things are going now. They know that there's this purportedly gifted individual, the son of a haberdasher who served like the military, who presents hypnotic and like telepathic powers as a teenager. At one point even like there's an anecdote that's given in this book where a customer is coming to his dad's shop and he immediately knows that she's arriving to pick out a cravat.
Okay.
And he like tells her that. So like that's another example. But so we have this youth who then starts amassing this group called the Magic Circle, which goes on to carry out these serial murders that are ritualized in nature. That we've already given you one of them, right? So so I think we got like a lot of I think we're starting to build the body of the story like a fair bit, and we like worked in all of or not all of, but we like kind of foreshadowed like the intelligence connections as well.
Right.
This is a total like random tangent.
Yeah.
One other thing that I had thought of.
One of many things.
One of many things. The Magic Circle, right? The name. Are you familiar with the British secret society, the Magic Circle?
I know that there is a British group called the Magic Circle. I didn't look up.
They're stage magicians.
Yeah, right.
So it's like the order, but interestingly, they also have a tripartite like hierarchy to the group.
Okay.
I believe. But at first, I assumed that like the Magic Circle must have come after this, but actually, the British group of stage magicians predates this Magic Circle.
Interesting.
It's existed since 1905. And I was just like, I've talked a little bit about the Magic Circle in the past in relation to like the Hanussen stuff, and because of those, some of those like the interplay of like stage magic and sleight of hand and
cinema,
espionage and intelligence, right? Yeah, and like cinema too. But I think the Magic Circle, one of its early members was like the stage magician Maskelyne, who was like very famous in the Victorian era.
Okay.
But in the present day, King Charles is actually a member of the Magic Circle. And then I got thinking about how Charles is also a homeopath.
Yeah.
Right?
That came out recently, right?
Alternative medicines. Yeah, I don't know how long it's been known, but I've only known about it for like a couple years that King Charles has this baby Billy streak, which is funny.
Yeah, I learned about it with his with that strange painting that was made of him. The red one with the monarch butterfly.
Word. Okay. Yeah, that I don't think that's even how I learned. I think I learned about it first, maybe from like formerly Reed on Twitter.
Okay. Yeah.
Is may have been how I first learned about the Magic Circle, like King Charles connection, and his interest in like homeopathy and like medicinal medicines. Though don't quote me on that though.
Yeah, no,
because it's been a while. But
yeah, no, but I think the very fact that so far in our research, right, if we think about it like somewhat rationally, like the only person we have on document that were used in the trial that connects a person by their own name to this group, the Magic Circle, is also a person who engaged in stagecraft magic, the white fakir. And like, I don't know, that sounds interesting. like that, and then that the only other magic circle we have on paper is this British version, which is doing the same thing. It's there must have been some kind of overlap there. Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it seems on theme with the obvious like comparisons to be drawn with Hanussen as well. So there's that too. Dude, you've got me. So the thing with the white fakir, I'm not even sure, at least in the 130 out of 150 pages of this book that I read closely, I don't remember the fakir even coming up in here.
Maybe because the lack of the Shinberg, the forensic paper, because he's mentioned by name in one of Shinberg's interviews.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
But I'll send you the book.
Very curious about that.
I'll send you. Yeah, because you see those pictures of that guy. He doesn't look friendly. Of course, it's a stage thing, but
he's intense.
Yeah. But the magic circle, maybe just to. I added this today, but because I was reading some old papers and it made like a reference. It's like one of those apps, and then I was just clicking to see like the next page of like an old newspaper, and then the next paper was like another paper. It was a magazine for witchcraft in Swedish, and they were talking about like what is a magic circle, and I didn't know about this because I'm not actually super interested in magic, but a magic circle is sort of like, and then I realized what it is because I know it from like every single like children's horror story that I read when I was young, obviously.
Right.
It's like that. This
you know it from the classic Soviet era Russian movie horror film, right? Like people might recognize it from that, where the protagonist, when he's in the chapel, he's always drawing a magic circle on the ground to protect himself from the demons
with
and the witch, right?
Yeah.
With chalk.
Yeah, and as far as I could find out, like that's the point, right? Like the magic circle is sort of like a mobile temple that you can bring with you and create with chalk or salt or maybe just imaginary or with pebbles. And the oldest mention I could find of it is in the Babylonian exorcist manual by the Manu, which is like a member of the Babylonian intelligentsia. It's like a title. And his name is Esagil-Kinapli, and this is about like 1,000 years before the Common Era. Though it seems like this is like an anthology of older texts, so it seems to be like almost of like Sumerian age, like that we know. But I can see it being older than that as well. It's a very like rudimentary or basic concept, which is often like I guess the most powerful. That it is not elaborative at all. Like if you can really make yourself believe that you just need to put salt around the place where you're going to murder somebody, then, you can take that in strange directions for sure. Like, it doesn't have to be elaborate to be powerful. Is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. And some of the ways, to my limited knowledge, often with this kind of like, ritual magic, it involves a visionary aspect too, probably, right? Where it's like, so the very act of like believing or envisioning probably plays a significant role in like how it's supposed to operate. One other thing on the magic circle, I was going to mention that they had a magazine, because you brought up an occult journal or a witchcraft magazine. The Magic Circle, the Stage Magic Society, also had a publication called the Magic Circular, which I think they were publishing around this time too. So it's also not like outside of the realm of possibility that like some of these individuals could have been like exposed to it. Though obviously this is like comparing apples and oranges somewhat, right? Because like stage magic is very distinct from ritual magic, but I think we're finding like some some like little overlaps that, so it's almost, this is more just like added color more than anything.
We're playing around with the focus button on the remote right now. Trying to make this come into clear
and
picture.
and maybe it's gotten it's the lateness of the hour, and maybe I'm babbling a little too much about it.
Yeah, put a
just because it's
if you have like some
12:20.
Yeah, if you have some artistic skill, put a notebook next to your bed and paint if something come to visit you tonight, and then we'll hand it later. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time and having me on. Like, this was awesome. Good times. Yeah.
As it was for me, Marcus. Looking forward to continuing this Sala Gang journey with you, and thank you so much, listeners.
If you stay, then I stay. If you leave, I'll pursue.